streaming is an essential part of how I make this my career. So much appreciate any support you guys can throw. Or if you're just sitting and chatting and being cool, that is also greatly appreciated. If it comes off sarcastic, it definitely isn't. You'd be surprised at how much Twitch streamers appreciate people just being cool and making it a friendly place for other people in chat. So shout out to everyone watching. Let's get into some TvT finals. Let's get a prediction also started. We should have plenty of time. So TvT between the two, already said, pretty closely matched. Recently, though, it has been going in HeRoMaRiNE's favor. Why did I close that tab? That was just dumb of me. Yeah, it's going in HeRoMaRiNE's favor, but it's still a very close series. Going to the ace match every single time. So I really can't say who's going to win this one. In a bit more of a high-profile match, HeRoMaRiNE recently took down Clem, DreamHack Masters. But honestly, while yes, the Open Cup is less important, definitely so, the actual quality of games, and I think the way that the players can approach these games is certainly on the level. There's no one who's coming into the finals of this Open Cup and saying, oh, this guy again? Well, you know, I don't really care. I'm not gonna try that much. No, absolutely not. This has become an amazing testing grounds for a lot of European players, and it really is, I don't know if bellwether is the right word, but it's you can see a lot of what you expect to see in DreamHack come from the Open Cups. So if Clem wins here, then it does give him a little bit of a nod towards winning in a DreamHack, or vice versa, whatever. And if in DreamHack HeRoMaRiNE wins, then yeah, it gives him a little bit more of a push towards maybe he'll win this best of 5. On the whole, I really don't think that players think a lot about the differences of the competition that they're playing. I think there's definitely realizations. You know, if it really is something they don't necessarily have to be stressing over, they won't, you know, prepare builds, and they won't stay in a game 2 minutes after they're dead. They'll just tap right out. You know, stuff like that definitely shows where people's priorities are, but the Open Cups have become really integral, I guess, to getting the pulse of the European scene. Thank you, Shitzerg, for the 300 bits. I'd like to think I'm a cool in chat, too. You've been pretty cool, actually. I approve. If I could turn off predictions to ever see it again, I would be happier for it. It's not even that annoying, though. I'm actually... Why such a strong opinion on it? 3 Reapers coming in here and 2 Hellions for Clem is actually a bit of a bother for HeRoMaRiNE. Until his X2 Hellions come out anyways, HeRoMaRiNE was going for a Reactor Factory build, something that will counter this build of Clem, as long as the micro doesn't go entirely lopsided. It was just an almost perfect opportunity, because if Clem dives in immediately and grabs 2 Hellions, then the next 2 Hellions appear, then yes, it's entirely doable for his build to win out. But having seen the Hellions now, I wonder if he's thinking about a potential drop. Doesn't seem that way. Nothing's in the main base. Not that Clem has very much anyways. He just has the Reapers that are currently at the front, and then the Cyclone's only halfway done. 3 Hellions, though. 1 shot. We're quite injured. Quite injured. Easily cleaned up. Still grab 4 SCVs. The medevac lives. Starport can still be used to build the Ravens. Not really so committed from HeRoMaRiNE. HeRoMaRiNE's getting a pretty fast 4th gas. wonder. I mean, you're gonna need a lot of gas if you got 2 starports, and HeRoMaRinE did build a 2nd starport. He's building double Ravens. Double Ravens, man. And we'll see if he... I mean, I don't think he'll continue building Ravens, but we'll see if he goes into Vikings, which has become a lot more expected. When we have a proxy starport, we've seen a lot of Terrans go ahead and build a 2nd one back at home. And we've even seen a couple of builds that literally are... They're made to be 2 starport builds to counter something that the other Terran's doing. And Maru talked about that a little bit at DreamHack season finals. Which, by the way, Maru's the toughest guy in the world to interview. What's so nice about Rainer is that you can ask him kind of like like, not necessarily a vague question, but a question that has an obvious answer. And he won't just give you the obvious answer and then end it at that. So when I asked Maru, like, you know, what's the deal with the 2 starport response? You know, is it getting popular? Is it really that good? I was hoping he'd say more than just, yes, it counters what my opponent was doing. But that's all he said. It was just like, yeah, 2 starports give you more Vikings so you can beat the other Terran. And I was like, that's fine. Really helpful. Anyways. The 2 starports are continuing to make Ravens, so this is actually a shock. This is completely new. You can go into double Viking production, but, you know, only double if you have to have 2 tech labs. Clem's gonna see the amount of Ravens. Oh my god, he's gonna take one out and injure the other ones. They're Ravens. How did they get bopped by a Widowmine? And then I can't add very much more to this. You know, going into the Vikings after grabbing 2 or 3 Ravens kind of puts you in this nice position where you're very air dependent. So you don't have like a lot of the fodder units on the ground, but it can still be strong. You go into mass Raven right from the get-go. You don't have a ton of fodder units. And the Ravens are... I mean, how to say, like, they're so expensive and slow building, because there's only one at a time, it comes from Tech Lab, that we just don't, it's not usually possible to build the Raven count so early on. The Viking count's a little more flexible, you know, a little more consistent, I suppose. The Vikings will attack without needing energy, being limited on energy. They can attack ground and air. They can provide bodies to block a concave. But to be fair, Raven auto turrets are really powerful. Just like the question is, can you get enough Ravens in good enough positions with enough energy to cover what should be a, you know, lack of ground units? That's the question. And then we see here another reason why perhaps Ravens and just Ravens isn't really that popular. Vikings can out micro Ravens significantly. Vikings might not be the most solid air unit in the world, but they have range. Very microable. So that's another reason why this can be very dangerous to do. Very different TvT, and I'm glad to see it. So HeRoMaRinE finally lifts up that proxy starport, stopped building the Ravens, added a reactor to the one at home. He is going to be going into bio, but the biggest takeaway from this is that he doesn't have the Viking count yet. He also doesn't have stim or combat shields. That's a big delay. Big delay. And another reason I think that Ravens aren't necessarily the bestest because of the expense and the time it takes to get to them is that after, like, if you have 6 Ravens, but they have 20 more Marines, are the 6 Ravens going to be enough? Maybe. Because, again, auto turrets are actually pretty good. An anti-armor missile plus an auto turret? Yeah, that is pretty good. We really can't underestimate the power of Ravens. That's why they're so popular in the late game of TvT. It's just kind of the issue of getting them early to mid. Are you making too many sacrifices? I am not ready to call judgment on this game. It's not over yet on this Raven fight. But it was already kind of thwarted by Clem finding it out in the middle of the map. So I think HeRoMaRiNE's kind of just making do. Still got 5 Ravens, but no upgrades on his bio. And though Clem has to be scared of 5 Ravens, he's got 8 tanks. There is a certain number of tanks that do just kind of protect each other. And that's what we have here. So Clem leaves that at home and then sends the rest of his army over to the other side of the map, which Ravens are also going to be finding difficult to help defend. HeRoMaRiNE's reinforcements are there as well, so it's okay. Good. This game might end up being a totally normal TvT, and then HeRoMaRiNE's gonna have a little bit of a lead in a late game swap. I'd be a little surprised if that happened because Clem must realize, like, he must want to do something. He sees the Ravens, is probably acknowledging the same weaknesses that I am, or, you know, even more precise because he's a better player than I am. And he probably wants to do something about it, but, you know, if this was mass Raven, if this was like 20 Ravens, like some stream challenge or something like that, you know, Clem's already won, basically. But it's not. HeRoMaRiNE's still got kind of the basics of Terran versus Terran, right? It just with this kind of an orthodox opener and follow-up. The biggest opportunity for Clem is not this 20 supply lead, it's his combat shields lead. And it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to use it. Well, spoke too soon. He actually gets up this ramp. And realizes maybe it wasn't a good idea, I don't know. Interference matrices galore and auto turrets and just everything happening at once. And HeRoMaRiNE's going to dominate that attack. He is going to take out every last unit of Clem except for these poor Marines that I guess got to live for now. And HeRoMaRiNE did that all before combat shield was done. It wasn't at all about the Marines. It was about the Ravens and the landed Vikings. And a lot of them lived. Even though Clem tried to respond, he kind of saw that coming even before I did. He actually didn't manage to snipe a lot of the units out of the sky. It's 10 Vikings, 4 Ravens. And now HeRoMaRiNE even catching up on the Marine supply. I mean, Clem's got to be really scared here because the Ravens still have some energy as an interference matrix that could cost him the defense. Oh, the Viking control into a couple of Liberators. So brutal. Clem has 2-2 over 1-1. The Marines are just simply put better, and that is a decent concave, but I don't know if Clem actually has enough. The SCV pool to help soak some of the tank damage might just be the ticket back into this. Clem is going to lose some economy, but clean up the attack and chase down some of these very weakened Vikings, equalizing the supply, equalizing the air, and equalizing the game to a degree. HeRoMaRiNE is still only on 3 bases, and Clem was able to sneak out a 4th that is already a planetary, so it's not actually even. Clem has come out ahead as long as he survived that attack, and he did. Even though he had to lose some SCVs to do it, it was a perfect decision. If those SCVs don't tank however many tank shots that they did, the amount of Marines that was left over might have not existed. They might have been killed in the fight. I think that SCV pool was very much called for. Could it have been overkill? Maybe it was going to be okay regardless because the concave was pretty good. Maybe. Fine. But no, I think that was perfect handling. Very good stress management right there from Clem to be up against the ropes like that and think, you know what? I got an opportunity. And I think the 2-2 really did help him with the upgrade difference. The game's not over yet, as TvT does have all these comeback mechanics. HeRoMaRiNE does a triple drop over to the right side, finds one tank in once a second. Clem is to pass. I don't know if his mouse isn't working, his keyboard isn't working, or his mother barged into his room and fed him a baguette, but for whatever reason, he had to abruptly pause in the middle of another kind of still scary point for him. He is down 15 army supply, and he's also stalled out in his upgrades. So again, the drop has found one tank and was very close to finding another. There we go. I don't know what Clem's interruption is, but hopefully he's fixed it. Clem was on his way to a bunch of starports. He was trying to transition into air. And it seems like it is going to eventually come through, but this is a scary point for him. He's lost 16 SCVs, so the economies have kind of equalized again. Although not really. The fourth command center being up and running still means that these SCVs, you know, they're not well, they're not mining anymore. They actually leave the main. There was no more minerals to mine. Once HeRoMaRiNE's orbital lands, it might actually return to even, but clearly a much more vulnerable base with just an orbital instead of a planetary. But this is a very scary moment for Clem because in the transitional period, you have Ravens low in energy, low in counts, and they're soaking up a lot of resources and supply that could be going into an equal number of Marines and tanks. So Clem, he was the guy with more Marines and more mobility. Now he's the slower player. The tables have really turned, and HeRoMaRiNE might still be able to win this just through sheer Marine power. Send those cheap, very efficient guys forward and hope they win. It might actually work out, because they're going to have 3-3 upgrades in about 20 seconds here. A couple of Marines in the main base racking up the SCV kills. This base now protected by 2 tanks is not going to be enough. All of the tank fire from HeRoMaRiNE going to pummel the planetary, and Clem is every which way. He's not consolidated. He's going to try and come in here now with a couple of interference matrix, but can't really take the opportunity to pounce by the looks of things. No, the tanks need to refire. There they go. SCVs are once again fooled as Clem realizes the desperation, and it's going to be enough. It is going to be enough. 20 SCVs get lost, mostly from the main base attack, but Clem is going to live. I still have a problem in his position, though. I think he's actually on the ropes still. He's in a very difficult position when he's depending on this transition, and it's not even afforded right now. He can't actually add on any more Ravens. He's got to go back to building Marines, but he might be too late. This might have been a little too far forward here for HeRoMaRiNE. He sieges up first, but then that was so many tanks that weren't being killed that Clem still draws the line in the sand and says, you can't get into my natural. I'll stop at least that. Such an interesting game. I love how things have just turned around, you know. Clem is now the slower player, but he's kind of been forced to go back into Marine production. The cheapest, best unit that arrives really quickly, too. But they don't have any upgrades. Clem is going to be beaten every time he tries to take a direct engagement Marine to Marine. It's actually so much more about Clem's tanks and whether they're in good position or not. These tanks have to cover this upgrade deficit. Clem also hasn't really had any opportunity to make a lot of medevacs, so he's just low on healing and low on mobility. He can't drop, he can't push, and he needs a drop. He needs to actually get HeRoMaRiNE off of his back. And he can't even do that. This planetary is not even mining anymore. HeRoMaRiNE is happily mining now from 2 fresh bases, both with orbitals that should be weak, but just have nothing pressuring them. Now, speaking of orbitals being weak, Clem is left with 1 tank and 1 tank only. That is going to be killed. HeRoMaRiNE, it looked like he was the one that was supposed to be in trouble 2 times over, but every time he came out of it with just superior something or another. In the last 5 minutes, I think it's just been superior numbers. He's had more Marines to work with. And before that, it was the Ravens adding in that surprising amount of damage to clean up 1 or 2 pushes. I mean, it's TvT at its finest, I believe. But it is ultimately a TvT that Clem's not going to win. Lost too many SCVs, so he's down by 40 SCVs, 40 army supply. He still hasn't started his 3-3. And I think at this point, he is just kind of angry at this game. I'm actually a little surprised Clem's still in it, but I guess because he's counting his tanks and seeing that he still has 5 is like, you know, maybe. Maybe. He hasn't really gotten onto HeRoMaRiNE's side of the map. All he's seen is that the orbital was taken. GG. That still means that HeRoMaRiNE is mining from it, right? So, Clem knew that he was in a pretty bad position, but that was a game that did probably feel like it just slipped through his fingers. It was never really that cut and dry. I don't think I'd call it a throw, but I do think if you're in Clem's point of view, it probably felt like you were supposed to win that after you broke out of that tank contain on the third. Because it was a very effective break. And, you know, you had your fourth base up and running. But it didn't really result in very much. I think that break having to be done at that time, I think, interrupted his flow. So it was probably the same... It's probably around the time that he was going to get 3-3, but then he had to prioritize dealing with the push, so he just kind of forgets 3-3, and then he can't afford it, because he's kind of recovering from that. And then he's also trying to get into Ravens. And I think the timing of that was brutal in that sense. It stopped them getting 3-3, and it hit just as Clem was transitioning. So he still wanted to do the transition. He still wanted to get to the superior army in the late game, but he actually couldn't do it fast enough. Had he broke out of that third base contain and then just had 8 barracks, 2 factories producing, I think he would have been in a better situation. So after a very long, very different TvT, we now arrive here with this guy down a game. In the bottom left, he is Clem. In the top right is the Red Terran. It is HeRoMaRiNE. And his winning streak continues against the French Terran. Seems to have got his number a little bit the past month. It was just one game, and clearly Clem had a lot to say in that game, but it did kind of show what might be pushing HeRoMaRiNE over the edge to take these victories. Again, the previous series were all very close, 2-3, 2-3, 1-2. So I think that game kind of, you could maybe infer that HeRoMaRiNE just kind of has the pacing factor down of TvT. He was able to identify what he needed to do with his current setup and then was able to execute very fast type of game. He didn't let the pressure stop, and that was really important, because if he takes 30 seconds and says, well, maybe I'll try and get a 4th CC, like, hold on here, then Clem's way ahead, because he's got 4 bases mining, he's building up his tank count and his Raven count, getting ahead in the economy and in the army composition. But HeRoMaRiNE, I think, is very astute with TvT. He knows what he should be doing, when and how. Where Clem, I think, does have, like, still a bit of a problem kind of falling behind pacing-wise or making the wrong mistake. It's like Clem is the ballroom dancer who still kind of steps on a toe every so often. And HeRoMaRiNE is the ballroom dancer who never steps on anyone's toes, but still might not look the best, but he doesn't make like super big mistakes, right? Clem seems to either gain a lot of momentum and carry it through and win, and he takes engagements totally fine now too, as seen last game. That was a problem in his TvT. I don't think it is anymore, but he seems to kind of be stuck where it's like, I don't know exactly when. I mean, I think he knows, of course, but his actual execution on when to transition from one slow-paced game to a fast-paced game to a slow-paced game to a fast-paced game, I think it's a little off. We compare it to his reads in TvZ, and it's like this guy's micro, macro, build orders, unit control are all the highlights of Clem's TvZ, but then on top of that, his pacing is almost always accurate. You know, he'll know exactly when to transition into the Marauders and transition into the Liberators and transition into mass expansions versus consistent pressure, you know what I'm saying? Seems like that element of his TvT is missing, and it's a very, very high tier element of players. It's like this tempo of a particular matchup is one of the last things you'll think about improving on, but I feel like that might be what sets the two apart right now. Because otherwise it's very, very close. Now, Clem has a... I do feel like this is kind of a fallback build for Clem on this map especially. He's going to go for the Hellion Marauder build. Now, the Marauders can drop on very important units like tanks or cyclones and take them out of the equation, while the Hellions do the massive amount of damage. Haven't really seen this be super effective in a while, but it's it looks very dedicated, but it's really not the most. As long as the medevac lives, especially with Clem in control, this has the actual outcome of this particular engagement might not matter the most. If the medevac dies, I do think then it's a bad start for Clem, absolutely. But if like the Hellions die without getting more than like 2 SCVs, I'm not as concerned. Medevac is gonna die, so I'm already concerned. Auto turret gets thrown down to support the anti-Hellion measures. Tank had arrived at the perfect time, and this is just it's not a great start. But to point out what I'm saying, like, ZombieGrub, that seemed terrible. Like, why do you say it's not, you know, that important? If you look at the actual numbers, it's really not that bad. It's recoverable. It's bad, but it's not unrecoverable. Clem still has only a 4 worker deficit. It's not the worst. He's even starting his 3rd command center a bit quickly, but that's because HeRoMaRinE has actually gone into 3 barracks on 2 bases, so that has less to do with the evenness of the game and more so about the build order choices of the two Terrans. But anyways, he's only down a couple of workers. His army supply still holds strong, so it's not like a counterattack can kill him, which I think is one of the biggest frights. When your whole push gets killed, you're like, oh, I can't even defend. Nah, you're pretty okay. And if you're okay to defend in a TvT and get to 3 bases, that means you're okay to play out the rest of the game, you know? Can be a very difficult matchup to actually kill your opponent. So that's what I was talking about, but I do think it's very bad for Clem because he lost the medevac like that. If he has the medevac, he's beep-bopping around, grabbing a tank, grabbing an SCV, grabbing 2 with some Hellions that come out of nowhere. But this just lost him all map control, all threatening presence. And HeRoMaRinE now going this 2-base attack, he might be able to actually kill Clem. So much more often we see 1 racks or 1-1-1 on 2 bases lead to a 3rd CC, then barracks. That's not what HeRoMaRinE's doing. Thank you to Sai Shengya for the $5 for the entertainment. Have a great day, ZG. Thank you. I'm sorry I ruined your name. So Clem pushes,
ready to plunder,
but he doesn't know that HeRoMaRinE has gone for more of a 2-base build, and this could be really bad. It could also be really good, actually, because HeRoMaRinE, not realizing the army was there, has already lost a bit, and then he's not really capable, he's not able to use his advantage right now in this position, which is the amount of Marines he's going to have. He's actually forced back into his natural, and Clem's going to take this as the go-ahead to continue soft-containing HeRoMaRinE. But I guess the reason that HeRoMaRinE couldn't use his advantage is because 16 of his Marines were in medevacs about to drop, so that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this played out okay. This ultimately played out in a way that I thought it would, which is that Clem is behind because of the opener, and then finds himself even farther behind because he didn't realize that HeRoMaRinE was going into a 2-base attack, and now is just done. It's game over. GG. If HeRoMaRinE had his 16 Marines back at home going down the ramp against tanks, I think my point of like, well, okay, hope maybe he can get like a kind of soft contain going is like kind of good, but honestly, to be honest, to be real with you guys, I didn't realize he picked up 16 Marines and 2 medevacs. I was like, this is a surprisingly small army for 2 bases. Huh. But no, that made more sense. Because you're supposed to have so many more Marines. That's the reason you add the 2 barracks faster. And I just was like, I guess they haven't produced yet, because I'm a dum-dum. At the end of the day, an opener that fails, it failed for sure, into not realizing your opponent's going to attack you. It's a bad time. It's a bad time for anyone. I wish I was Australian. Kidding me, mate? Australian accents give a bonus to charisma. It's just a fact. If the worst dictator in the world was Australian, I feel like Americans would give them a pass. They'd be like, oh yeah, he's alright. And then Australians would be like, no! We'd be like, oh, but he sounds so nice. So game 3, and we're already on match point. The top left down 2, he is Clem. In the bottom right, it is HeRoMaRinE. And he's looking very dominant. This is not at all... Well, okay, I don't actually know how the previous matches went. I don't know if Clem went down 0-2, then brought it back to 2-2, and then eventually lost the third one. I just don't know. But for their previous score lines being so even, I did not think this was going to head to a 3-0. We'll have to see if it is or not in Lightshade. I think Clem's been deterred about doing that Marauder Hellion drop. It is just something he brings out as a momentum resetter. I just don't know if I've seen it really work out that well. Because the two ways I've seen that work out for Clem since its inception, okay? Back when it first appeared, I think it was a strong, cheesy build, and like Clem won a lot of games with it. But since then, the 2 ways I've seen that play out is either Clem does kind of some damage, like he barbecues Marine 3 SCVs and keeps Medevac alive, and then adds more damage over time, and that looks totally fine. Or he gets bopped, similar to what we just saw. I've actually not seen it really do a lot of damage and put Clem in the lead for a few months at this point. Now, I don't stalk Clem, so I'm sure it still works at other tournaments and on ladder, but just... I've not been that much of a fan of it. When it first came to be, I was a huge fan. I used it on my own ladder games. I was like, this is so stupid. It's so fun. Not as much of a fan anyways this time around. And it has, unfortunately, put Clem down on his last life, but it's also maybe a bit of a throwaway for him. 2 racks opener from HeRoMaRinE is looking for that swift victory. It's not really looking for Clem to go for a 1 racks expand because TvT just doesn't really have that commonly anymore. But I think it is looking for Clem to miss micro for a hot second. Just for like half a second. And then HeRoMaRinE can win. It shouldn't happen, but it can. Clem is doing something interesting. He's going to go up to 5 Reapers, I believe, and 3 Hellions with the reactor building Reapers. Which is kind of funny, because that means that they're eventually going to end up with very similar unit counts. But they're going to come in from completely different directions. Neither one of them are... Well, I think Clem knows that HeRoMaRinE 2 racks back at home. Because he saw 2 Reapers. But I don't think HeRoMaRinE realizes what Clem's doing. No, he doesn't. This could get interesting. Now HeRoMaRinE knows. You can run away from the Reapers, but the Hellions can be a different story. Grenades need to be coming down. Concave on top of the high ground. They are going to be at such weirdly close unit counts. I mean, it's same destination, different pathway. Right now, HeRoMaRinE leads 6 Reapers. Well, 7 now in a Hellion. His reinforcements... Well, I mean... Whoever attacks is going to be attacking into faster reinforcements. And oh my god, are they going to flip base trade this? Oh my god, don't do it. Okay, no, Clem cleans up a Hellion and realizes that Hellion is probably going to join up with a bunch of Reapers, so he pulls back. We're not going to have a base trade. I don't know what I would prefer. I kind of want to see the base trade, but alright, we got this instead. And now the Reapers of HeRoMaRinE are kind of tucked in. This is where the Hellions of Clem are really going to shine. HeRoMaRinE's need to get the best concave possible for his position, which isn't really quite great. Yeah, and then HeRoMaRinE gets entirely slaughtered. He takes down 4 SCVs with him, but even a Reaper on the reinforcement gets taken out. And now Clem's counterattack is looking awfully deadly. He's got Reapers. They could go into the main base. The Hellions can take out the natural. The Reapers go into the main, and HeRoMaRinE doesn't have a whole lot to stop that. Cyclone's really not a lot against just the sheer number of units. A couple of Marines come forward, though, and HeRoMaRinE's not gonna... Or Clem's not gonna push his luck. Well, HeRoMaRinE needs to be really careful. This Cyclone actually can be killed by those set of units. It's not supposed to, but it can. Okay, the Medevac Micro, I think, was really the cherry on top of the defense there. Clem couldn't deal with the Medevac also being available. So the counter was not as devastating as I was fearing. I mean, HeRoMaRinE able to even defend his natural mining was more than I thought he'd do. So there's only a 1 worker difference. HeRoMaRinE is getting stim a lot faster, but he's also... He's getting stim faster and he has Marines faster because he had 2 barracks, right? But he's not going to have the Viking production that Clem has. So until there's enough Marines to benefit from that stim, Clem's army might be a bit better. Tank Viking can overcome a decent number of Marines. Let's see if Clem's going to push with it, though. HeRoMaRinE has a drop to threaten Clem. Clem has a couple of Reapers to threaten HeRoMaRinE. They both have a bit of a backstab. Alright, okay, yeah. I do think it's totally on Clem to be the push. So the dangerous thing here is that knowing that your opponent 2 racks opened, they're going to have more Marines. And they could even build Medevacs, which we see, he's seen, and then actually play a drop game. So Clem is going to have the bully army. He's going to have tanks and Vikings and Ravens, and he's going to be able to bully HeRoMaRinE back and back and back. But HeRoMaRinE has the mobility army that could just run away from the big bully. And that's seems to be HeRoMaRinE's plan. It's just going to run away. That's what all the teachers advise people to do against bullies, right? So we do eventually have the base trade. I'm going to take an extra couple of minutes, but here we go. Base trade time. Oftentimes, it comes down to who gets on top of the production faster. And Clem is already here. So, of course, HeRoMaRinE's going to pull back, and this actually might benefit HeRoMaRinE. He's going to pull back on top of landed Vikings and unsieged tanks, which is exactly what HeRoMaRinE would want, but he's already lost 22 SCVs, so HeRoMaRinE needs to clean this up and get the heck over to Clem's side of the map to make up for the economic damage he just took. This is an important timing right now for Clem. Can he defend? He's got 2 tanks, 2 Vikings, not a whole lot of production elsewhere, and he's even building a bunker. I actually don't mind that bunker at all. A 7-minute bunker might seem comical, but I actually am just like, anything to defend. You killed so many SCVs that HeRoMaRinE is absolutely in a 2-base all-in position. HeRoMaRinE's going to come into the natural. So this isn't really a lethal strike. It could do a heck of a lot of damage, but it's not going to kill Clem. And I think that's what HeRoMaRinE's got to hope is, is enough. He's going to deny a lot of mining. If he could grab a command center, that would be the most ideal, but he doesn't have the Viking numbers to take on Clem's. HeRoMaRinE's going to have to just hope that the SCV kills are going to be enough, and I don't think they will. They're kind of evening up the workers killed, yes, and that does almost equalize things, but Clem has a 3rd CC. Oh, nice tank positioning, trying to chase after a couple of these last Vikings. Why not? Gonna grab one. still on a knife's edge. Clem's still a bit down in the army supply, but his army type is just so damn good. HeRoMaRinE, I don't know if he's ever gonna get a third CC. Scan in the natural is gonna see like if the army's back at home, if there's a third CC in a similar position, he doesn't see either one. And should notice they'll be very defensive. 2 tanks in the natural for Clem, Vikings to the main, and if they find these medevacs, that actually might just be HeRoMaRinE tapping out. They're not. They pull back at the exact wrong moment for Clem, which means the drop is gonna be able to add more damage to the SCVs. Good pickup. Good pickup. HeRoMaRinE gets the heck out of dodge in time and might even be able to find a Viking. I'm just going to be careful about it. HeRoMaRinE's going to pull back a tank that had no business being on the other side of the map. HeRoMaRinE is going to just compile everything together and try again. Because this is still his moment, army supply-wise. The economy's not going to ever work out for him. Oh, nice pickoff. That's one less thing to worry about. Clem did stop with some medevac production to get that Liberator, and it didn't do anything. Scan now kind of more on the third CC position. Sees that it's still not there, and Clem again, just defend. Oh, the Vikings again are barely going to see the medevacs. Just in time to stop HeRoMaRinE from doing the drop. I think HeRoMaRinE just scanned the natural. Saw that there was still a very good defense. HeRoMaRinE, he already committed to extra barracks. This is certainly one of those games where like, man, maybe if I did go for a third CC at 9 minutes, I could have come back, but you know, it's so hard to tell. He might still be able to try and get a third CC. It's very difficult to tell. Clem managed to sneak out a medevac drop. And HeRoMaRinE might have enough to defend it. He is starting to build back at home. But it's something that he doesn't really want to have to deal with. That main base is pretty wide open. Well. HeRoMaRinE starts to move out. His entire SCV line gets slaughtered no matter where he is. Unless he's literally in the main base. Marines kill SCVs pretty difficult. So if there was a chance to build a 4th CC, I'm guessing it's not there anymore. 10 SCVs kind of taken away. 500 minerals? Oh, Doom drop into the mid! Oh, Clem. He was so wary about this for so long. And this might actually be the right moment, right time for HeRoMaRinE to close out this series. A 3-0 could be incoming if HeRoMaRinE does enough damage in the main. He is kind of stuck, though, and Clem's starting to siege up his own tanks. Vikings land. This actually is going to be cleaned up, but I guess at what cost is always the question. HeRoMaRinE is not going to be able to take the fight despite having 2 upgrades over his opponent, or maybe that's exactly why he'll take the engagement. The upgrades coming in strong right there to help take down more SCVs, more Marines, and not quite the Vikings, but they've injured a lot of them. HeRoMaRinE is also dropping in the natural, and apparently that has cleaned out the natural, forced the natural to lift off. More SCVs are going to fall. HeRoMaRinE with the 1-2 punch, also hitting the third CC at the same time. He's on absolute fire. He doesn't just want to win the Open Cup. He wants to actually get this 3-0. It seems that fate is on his side. HeRoMaRinE has taken a tremendous lead in this game. Up 17 workers, still up in army supply, and still with all this positioning. This might be time to actually set up the contain, and I think that's exactly what he's going to try and do. Clem can't say very much about it. He's still very tank dependent. He's got less Marines, even though the upgrades have finally evened out. SCVs are starting to go down over here, however. And the reinforcements are kind of being camped right now. Clem with 4 Marines might be able to do some serious damage. Now a tank pops, and that might just be it. The drop in the main base from HeRoMaRinE again. Clem just not able to stop this from happening. He's able to stop it from, I guess, flowing to on top of his production, although to a degree, one barracks just got sniped there. But he can't stop the drops from doing too much damage. He just can't. HeRoMaRinE has clawed his way back into the game going to get a concave on top of these tanks, focus fire them down, leaving Clem just down to 3. And HeRoMaRinE might even be able to get another upgrade lead. If this game goes on for another 60 seconds, HeRoMaRinE will have 2-1 against 1-1. Wow, HeRoMaRinE. A brilliant play in this last game, man. Again, he knows what he has to do. I mean, maybe he could have picked up there, I suppose, but I think he was focused on the attack and the natural. HeRoMaRinE just knows what to do. I think he's always been, you know, an intelligent player who knows what to do, but sometimes the execution wasn't there. I think in 2019, I would have never really called him a fast player, but 2020 and 2021, and this game specifically, he's on the same speed level as Clem, which is just... For a while there, when Clem was dominating last year, it felt like no one was going to be as fast as this kid, and then HeRoMaRinE, I don't know how he leveled up, what he changed in his mechanics, but it felt like he went from being a rock-solid macro player who could, you know, micro when necessary, to being just one of the fastest players out there. Because fast isn't just like APM. Fast is the decision and execution happening in a consistently good manner, right? Like, the drops that happen, that get saved, that do the damage, happening just in the nick of time because he knows he needs to do it at that specific moment. He doesn't waver. He doesn't overthink. He just does it. Something changed with HeRoMaRinE, and when it's on, when he's winning these tournaments, it often feels like that's one of the reasons. He just knows how to end these games, how to win these games. And Clem, this with TvZ, I'd be saying the same thing for him, but at TvT, it's HeRoMaRinE is looking so much better. Natural Orbital is out on fire. It's going to go down. Clem is back to 2 bases against HeRoMaRinE's 2 bases and still down 11 workers. The upgrade lead has now come into effect as well. And Clem, I think at this point, just doesn't want to admit that he's lost his... It was so close. It was so close. The first game was so close. Second game really wasn't that close, but the first and third games were so damn close, and both of those times, Clem is very hesitant to tap out. He's like, no, maybe I can do something. Maybe I can do something. And Clem's also a very clutch player. We've seen him in all the matchups be in a similar position and make the same decisions that HeRoMaRinE has, but HeRoMaRinE, when they're facing each other, it seems like he's just the one making the better decisions. Being as fast as necessary. And there it is. GG, HeRoMaRinE, 3-0s, despite the odds. And takes another open cup. Because that's what he does.